Welcome to Art with Mackenzie. Thanks for being here so we can do some art together. We are going to make something awesome. Be sure to check out my website and Etsy page for all kinds of cool art for your home. Welcome back to another session of modeling a T-Rex in Blender. Last time we got some of her face done. And today we're going to work on her body a bit, add some more details around the face, and finally start on the feet, but for just a bit. So in edit mode you can see just how many vertices we have on the parts of the dinosaur where we can add more detail, less detail. This will be in that triangle count in the upper left hand corner. And we're going to go over a few basics on our screen, give you a few more shortcuts to play with, and to open up our viewport a little bit more so we can see everything. You can hit T, and this will get rid of that left side menu. T to bring it back. And this is helpful if you just want more to look at. On the right side, you have another menu that has a few other options. And to open that up, you hit N, and that'll give you all the sub-menus for those menus for you to play with. And to get rid of it, you also just hit N again. And that'll open up your viewport even more. So now we are going to hit A to select all in edit mode. And we are going to subdivide our dinosaur. And this is going to subdivide all the heavy subdivisions we did earlier and the light subdivisions on her body. And take note of the triangle count because we have increased it very much. And what's going to happen is the more triangles you have, the slower your system is going to be. And this is what my system is set up. I have a Z790 Aorus Master, the i9 CPU, it's all water cooled, the RTX 3070 Ti with a bunch of CUDA cores, and 128 gig of RAM. And with that system, I can get quite a few triangles before the program starts slowing down. So I don't know what your system is. I'm trying to keep this as low poly count as I can, but still give you the maximum amount of detail. You can always have more detail with a stronger system, but for this tutorial we are just going to go with what I'm hoping to be a standard easy system. So we're going to just start getting busy with our new subdivide that we just did, and I'm going to tap lightly all over our dinosaur because we don't want to get rid of too many details. Make sure that the X mirror submenu on the upper right hand corner is checked. That way it'll get both sides of your model. And I'm just going to lightly smooth out these brand new faces that we did. Now be mindful that everything that you see that the cursor sees will smooth out. So if you're zoomed in, it'll smooth out a few pixels. If you zoom out, the cursor size doesn't change, but it'll still cover any faces that it sees. Fun trick to use if you just want to zoom in and out instead of changing your cursor size. That is an option for you. So we're just going to keep smoothing everything else as we go, because I like to see where she's going to be at, and I like to stay on draw because as I smooth out I might soften something up too much, like her leg here. So I let go of shift and just have at it and add parts that I think she needs, like muscles here. And for your convenience, I've put the shortcuts that I use mostly in the lower right hand corner. As always, be mindful of your transition points between a lot of polys to not so many. So around her calf, her arms, and her neck will be those points. And we'll just smooth and add, smooth and add. I'm going to stay on draw, and I'm going to hit Control to start taking away, because I like the size of her tail, and I don't want to add anything over it. So I'll hit Control, take away some of that surface area, and then build up around it. And we'll do the same with the bottom. And go straight down. Don't go side to side yet, to give her a more natural look. And we'll add some extra skin and folding around the back of her leg. Where she moves the most is where you're going to get a lot more of this detail. So you're not just going to have random extra material around the middle of her tail, because that's not where she's going to bend. We're going to beef up her pelvic bone, some muscles around the pelvic bone. And as you add different parts, or as you add the detail to your model, other parts will start looking silly, and that's where you can start fixing and modifying your model. On the back side of her knee, I'll take away, add some of that extra skin, because again, that's where she moves the most, so that's where there's going to be a lot of folding of the skin. Add some hints of her ribs. Now I'm just kind of guessing here. There's nothing, I'm not doing anything too fancy. Just kind of seeing what looks good on her. We'll add some more lateral muscles to her back. Extend these neck muscles down. And add some more detail. Because smooth just looks wrong. It doesn't look natural. So if you just add a little bit of detail, it really doesn't take much to trick your eye into believing that there's more there than what really is. And I just go around my model bit by bit and see what works. You don't have to follow me along if you don't want to, because I'm kind of scatterbrained, and this is how this is my process. So at this point you can work on the different parts that you want, but this is how I do it. I go and I look and fix what I see as I go, and there's no real rhyme or reason to it. And so I just smooth out her hands to get rid of those flat polygons, so I can see what I'm working with. And I stay on my draw tool, and I'll start adding the fat pads around each of her fingers and the backside of her knuckles. And I'll hit Control to start differentiating between the different joints of her fingers. Her finger here looks a little flat and unnatural, so I've got to fatten this up. And as I'm fattening up different areas, I kind of see how the rest of her shape is going to look. So I decide, hey, this is where a wrist bone is going to be. And this is where a muscle is going to be. Because even though her limbs were very short, they were still very powerful. There were quite a few Tyrannosauridae who didn't have, who didn't use their limbs as well, so they were more tucked in. And there's still a little bit of debate on which way her arms were facing. But for the masses and for this particular model, we are going to go with forward-facing arms to give us that Jurassic Park look. And so I just add, take away, add, and decide now she needs more of a shoulder. And because she'll be moving her arms forward and backwards, not too much side to side, this is where I'll add that extra detail in for her skin to stretch. And instead of going to the rest of the body, I think, you know what, let's go for the feet. So now I'm at the feet, and I tap and smooth out her legs and feet, just so I can see what that extra faces and the subdivide did for me. So again, if your goal is to 3D print this, every polygon will be printed. So the smoother you have your model, or the more detailed you have your model, is what you should be able to see on your print. And we'll smooth out her head. And we'll see this transition line right here. This is going to have like one vertex and two faces, where everything around it has dozens or maybe even 100 faces. This isn't much to worry about. We are going to fix this later. So for right now, just be mindful of that as you add your detail. But it's not a big worry right now. So take your time, look all around your model, see what you need to work on. And I want to add more vertices to just her body, so I don't want to subdivide her head and arms. So we'll bring up our T for tools, hold down this upper left hand corner to get our select circle. We're going to go into X-ray mode and then hold down Shift and select everything just inside of her body. Move it around, get under her arms, under her belly. We'll hit Q and we'll subdivide just her body. You'll see that our triangles did not go up that much because there weren't that many triangles to begin with. So we'll go back into sculpt mode, and then once again just tippity tap, holding down Shift with any tool to smooth out our brand new vertices that we just added. And the more vertices you add, the less of an effect the smoothing function works. because there's more vertices to work with. So we'll go back and we will add these ribs, add this scapula, add the muscles to the scapula, and bring it around the side of her body. Okay, we're now going to work on that transition. So we're going to go to Dynatopo, we'll click on it, subdivide the edges, do brush detail, and we'll get rid of smooth shading because we don't want that right now because we are in shade flat. And in draw, go around that transition with your Dynatopo on and just draw a little line. And what this does is it adds to your triangles, and you'll see that right here. Now, every time that you do anything in Dynatopo, it's going to add a bunch of triangles, and you'll see if you give her a goiter, it adds quite a few. And the more triangles you have, the harder it's going to be to work on the rest of your model. So you want to keep those to a minimum. But when you see, if you take Dynatopo off, you can just keep adding and adding and adding, and it's not going to add any faces to it. Same with taking away. So with Dynatopo off, you manipulate your faces that you have already. With Dynatopo on, you are adding. So we're going to grab our grab tool, and we're going to start fixing up the shape of her body to get her more normal looking. And to move more of her body, get a bigger cursor. To move smaller portions of her body, shorten your cursor. And that looks good. I'm going to thin up her tail a bit here. Shrink in between her ribs and her legs. We want to keep this as natural as possible, so when we do print this out, she will stand on her own. And if with a smaller cursor you can bring out her pelvis more without having to add anything, or without using your draw tool, and just refine her shape everywhere you want that looks good. So we'll bring out the rest of her body to match our reference photo. We'll play with her tail a bit, soften it up, smooth it out. Be careful around those tips, because if you smooth too much, you can take away a lot of your tail, and that's just going to be horrible. We'll add a little bit more to the stabilizing muscle. Now to accentuate your features that you already have, in between those hills you have little valleys right here, and so I just hit Control, and that'll take away a little bit more. And I do this method quite a lot. I'm not a big fan of adding the hills by themselves because it just adds to your model. I do a lot of taking away as well to help accentuate features. So add a hill and a hill and a valley and a valley, and you get a lot more contrast without adding too much bulk to your model. So I will do that everywhere. I will add where I want muscle, and if I want to tone it, I will take it away. So we will work on her knee a little bit, add a little bit of sag of the skin because she bends it there a lot, and she needs a little bit more surface area to get that full rotation of her knee. Now this looks a little bit silly in back, so we're going to check with our reference, and I'm going to move part of her leg to match her reference a little bit more. And still on the inside it looks silly, so I'm going to just grab it and grab the inside just a bit and bring it forward. So it's not like a solid block of a leg, it is two distinct parts of her leg. And we'll go to draw and we'll add some of these little muscles back here, some tendons where she bends. And I like doing this a lot with different parts of her leg, adding strong tendons, because I mean it's the way they move. It sounds stupid. I like adding tendons because it matches modern birds. They have a whole bunch of tendons in their legs. If you've ever eaten a turkey leg, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I'll just add them in and get a little bit of a fatter brush for muscle. And as I add the muscle to her legs, arms, or body, she starts forming in a way that I think she needs to look. So I'll add based on what I'm working with. So I know she needs to bend here, so then that means I know I need to add some skin here, and it's not going to go straight up, it's going to fold kind of back, and that's going to kind of dictate the rest of the shape of her feet. Now we're going to go into draw sharp, and you'll see that it is in the negative mode, which is take away. If you go to draw, it's in positive. So when you just use the tool, it takes away in the negative, and when you hit control, that's the positive. So I probably should explain that in an earlier video a little bit clearly, but hey, I'm new at this, so I have a reference photo for feet that I like to use. If you want a reference photo, you can. This is kind of how I do it. And like with everything else, these lines aren't going to be like the final version of it. I like to kind of get a close approximation of what I like. And if it looks like later it doesn't work out, then I change it. So I've done this enough where I know what I like, and this is how I add these scales to the top of her feet. And for right now, again, it's just draw. We're taking away, making a nice little line, a little groove, and shaping out these scales. And don't forget her little pinky toe, because her little pinky toe needs scales as well. That's just a cute little pinky toe. We'll add one more up top under this foot flap. So she's got these wide scales at the top right here, and then it goes into smaller round scales, and that's what I'm going to work with. Now remember, when we pulled out this foot flap, it also pulled out those faces. So we're not going to have that extreme detail or that fine detail that we see in our toes. But again, this is just a let's see what this looks like process. That's what I'm doing here. I just want to see what it looks like, see if I like it. Because if I don't like it now, I can erase it nice and easy and do something I do like. And be mindful of when you're drawing on your draw pad. See, I'm right-handed, so I have a little bit of a slant. So I have to look at it in a different way. And again, because this is kind of just a let's see what it looks like, I don't really care too much about how precise we are. So I'll add a few more here. And I think that's a good stopping point for us. So next time we're going to add a lot more detail. But today, really good job. She's looking more and more like a T-Rex, looking more and more alive. So make sure to hit like and subscribe, leave a comment down below if there's something you want to see. And I enjoyed doing art with you. I'll see you next time.